I'm doing well. How are you doing? They can hear me. I have no idea. Darling, see, Critical Cripple, can you hear our illustrious leader? Apparently, it might be for the best.
This,
Ah, thank you, darling.
let me check.
We will fix Peter. But in the meantime, I can tell you that we will be interviewing a fellow Canadian atheist, the actual founder of CanadianAtheists.ca. Canadian Atheists,
Okay,
CanadianAtheists.ca.
apparently I'm back. I have no clue. OBS chose to
Sorry, boys.
set my microphone to something different, and that was just one that I couldn't see. So, okay, as I said, welcome everyone for a new episode of Herding Cats. Our guest today is someone who has been on my wish list for quite a while. We talked about it, and so everything got in the way. But finally, he is here. Randolf Richardson. Randolph, how are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for having me on. It's a delight to be a part of your show.
Well,
It's a delight to have you. I'm always happy to speak to a fellow Canadian atheist, especially one that I've actually seen in the real world
Yeah, we
and
met
life,
before.
like people do.
I believe we met at a
wait,
bar.
he
but
actually
it was
he actually
something-
exists in real life. That,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
we've met before.
There was an event. I live on Vancouver Island, and Randolph lives in the greater Vancouver region, we shall say. That's general enough. There's a few million people there. And I went across actually with Neil 604 Atheist. He was able to pick me up from the ferry, and we both went to this event that Randolph was holding in conjunction with the Atheist Republic, discussing
it has to be the coolest part of Canada. It has you, it has Neil,
yes.
and it has Randolph. I mean, I got family in Alberta, but I think should I visit,
No,
I'll.
Alberta is like Texas, but Canada.
Mhm.
Like it's not as bad as Texas because it's still Canada. But no, you want to come to BC. We have the weed and the oceans and the vineyards and the hippies and the whales. And did I mention the weed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
called BC Bud, and apparently it's popular all over the world.
and if
It
we
is.
if
have
we
the
count in
stuff.
Neil, you have the hair as well. I mean, no
That's true.
no one can win when it comes to Neil. So, Randolph, first question: Can you do a little introduction of yourself? What do you do? And for people who do not know you.
Oh, gladly. Thank you. So I am the founding president of the Canadian Atheists. I started this organization as a national organization with the hopes of countering the vilification of atheism that I'm finding occurring in the general public. It's not near anywhere close to the degree that we see in some other countries, but it is a problem here that is a small one. But I think that by starting now, rather than later, we're able to stay ahead of the game and keep it quelled as much as possible. I don't want to stop people from making open critiques and criticisms. What I'm trying to do is encourage more people to counter it and say, hey, look, you have freedom of expression, so do I, and what I think you're saying is wrong, and here's why. And I encourage kind of a professional tone, a very gentle approach to pushing back, because I think in Canada we're in a good position to do that fairly easily. and plus our culture, it fits with all of this very well. So that's part of what we're doing. We've just recently formed a partnership with alliance with affiliation with the AAI. The IAA. I'm just going to quickly look it up and make sure
International
I got the name
Association of Atheists.
right. Yes, yeah. And it's been wonderful to be hooked up with them. International Association of Atheists. Yeah, we have partnerships set up with them. We have a bulletin on our website, so that's IAA. And their initiatives include secular education, secular underground network, legal aid for blasphemy, helping atheist seniors, and promoting atheist businesses. So they're doing a lot of things to actually help people throughout the world, and so we've even been able to send some people their way to help out, because we're not set up for that, but they are. So we believe very firmly in connecting with specialists who can make a difference, and then helping people get in touch with them in the right ways. So. Yeah, we do get some requests from people overseas on a fairly regular basis, mostly under Islamic regimes, who are asking for help, but not only Islamic, but those seem to be the ones who are in the most dire need of help right now. They can't even...
The Islamic-run nations do tend to have, if there is a truly abhorrent blasphemy law, it is almost certainly an Islamic nation.
Well, it's not a blasphemy law. That's freedom of expression. It's an anti-blasphemy law because it's limiting it. But I know.
Yes. But the kind where if you become an infidel and abandon your faith, bad things will happen to you.
Yeah. For example, in Saudi Arabia,
legally or not.
Yes, that's correct. And so far, like in Saudi Arabia, is probably a really effective example of this. I wouldn't say good. I'd say they're very bad. They've put into their law books that it is anybody who's discovered to not believe in Allah or Muhammad or anything like that, follow along, is an atheist is automatically classified as a terrorist in Saudi Arabia, and the punishment,
even if they were not previously a Muslim,
doesn't matter. They don't care. If they find out you're an atheist, they classify you as a terrorist and they put you in jail. And people I know have told me, I've not been able to confirm this officially, but what people who've lived there and some going back have told me that the way the punishment structure works there for that, because they know of people it's happened to, they will get 1,000 lashes. It's like getting caned in Singapore. The pain is so severe that the person gets knocked out on the first one, usually. And once you've had 1,000 of these, it takes a long time. Then they execute you, and apparently it's a slow, painful death. So the human rights violations from Saudi Arabia are unfortunately not surprising. And
no, they truly are not.
There's other regimes that are doing that sort of thing as well, and most of them are doing it under the name of Islam or some other kind of religion. So, we get attempts from people contacting us. They can't even tell their family members or close friends or relatives, anybody. They can't tell anybody that they don't believe all that stuff, because if they do, their own family members will turn them in, because there's so much pressure under the regime to comply, to conform to the religious Sharia law and those kinds of oppressive systems. So, fortunately, I do know that a few of those cases have been helped, which is good. And the impression I get is those people they're sneaking onto the internet to do it, and they're
yes,
contacting,
I have no doubt.
And they're contacting, I would guess they're contacting a number of different organizations, which is a good thing, just to kind of see what
absolutely happens. Throw out as many lines as you can.
And these are the people that I believe do need to be helped, because they're in a situation where their own personal security is under siege. And this is partly why I say atheism is under siege. And there are people who are meaning to attack it. There are people out there who will make all kinds of ludicrous claims about atheism, saying that that we're terrorist mindset. Somebody did this recently, and I'm still calling them to account on it. Lately, they haven't retracted their statement. And there's others too. There's a ridiculous claim I came across recently, claiming that atheism and another one, anti-theism, are both inherently racist, which is a pile of nonsense, because those are different categories. And, I will say this, while it is possible there's nothing in atheism that tells people you can't be this or that, because it's only the classification of not believing in deities. Everything else is incidental. So unfortunately, there are bad actors, just like with religion, they have that. There are some atheists who are bad as well. Like, for example, Craig Hicks, he a few years ago killed some young people over a parking dispute who happened to be Muslims. And so a lot of people started looking at that, say, oh, well, he must have done it because he's an anti-theist. Well, he said himself.
No.
So
yeah, if you have the kind of rage that you're going to murder someone over a parking dispute,
you got other
that's
problems.
You. Yeah. Even and I hesitate too much to draw an equivocation here, because an atheist may be racist or violent or anything, because it's just whether or not they believe in God. And you can't blame it on atheism, because there's no doctrine or holy books. But at the same time, in religion, there are many doctrines and holy books that specifically either directly advocate or encourage, and can very easily be interpreted as advocating truly horrific anti-human ideas.
Yeah.
And so I'm always very much on the defensive against the kind of false equivalency that is so often grasped at by people of a vague faith.
I got you. Yeah, there is actual ethnic cleansing or genocide being promoted. Even the Holy Bible promotes it under 2 Corinthians. I'll just quickly look that up so that people can confirm that what I'm saying here is correct, because I know people will question it.
Hello, Beach.
Yeah, so let me see. So here it is. So under the Bible, under 2 Chronicles 15:13, the King James Version says that whosoever would not seek the Lord God of Israel should be put to death, whether small or great, whether man or woman. So that's genocidal. That's they're taking a whole group of people because who do not act like them and do not believe the same thing, and they're saying kill them all. It's to me, this is when this kind
of, I mean, that's not to mention the specific genocides advocated in the Old Testament, wipe the Amalekites off the face of the earth. Although
the cleansing example,
there was, exactly. Although, was it Abimelech? There was a very amusing incident that was pointed out of how incredibly stupid the God of the Old Testament is, because he says, I say to Abimelech, I will wipe you off the face of the earth and your name will never be remembered.
That's quite vengeful.
How do we know that name?
And that is because it's in the Bible.
You don't erase someone from history by writing them into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but when you look at the past,
I just wanted to carry on. Sorry, I just wanted to mention.
Go ahead.
There are atheists I've encountered who do have racist attitudes, and I do confront them on it. I don't turn around and say, "Well, you're not an atheist because you're racist." I just say, "Hey, that's a racist attitude. This is not acceptable in modern civilized society," and that's the angle that I approach on that one. It's I think these people who are needing the help in these other countries like Saudi Arabia and whatnot, it's very important that I think United Nations needs to take a stronger stand on these things and not do things like allow Saudi Arabia to become the chair of the Human Rights Commission and things like that, because
that was pretty fucking egregious.
Well, at least 2 years in a row they were, and they were I don't know if it went on longer, but they put out this pathetic explanation for why they allowed it to happen. And I thought, wow, they're so far off course. And at that point, I thought, okay, I'm no longer donating to any UN programs because what they're doing is wrong. You don't put somebody like Saudi Arabia, who systemically violates human rights and also refused to sign on to the UN Declaration of Human Rights. You don't put them in chair. In fact, I would say, in my opinion, I think the Human Rights Commission should have a minimal requirement that the organization, the countries that are part of it, that have voting rights in it,
should sign the declaration.
Yes, must have signed it. That must be a requirement. Otherwise, it means nothing. And right now, in my view, it means nothing. As far as the UN is concerned, the declaration means a lot to me, but the United Nations organization behind it sorely disappoints me because of this. It's like they don't take it seriously. They don't care, and they need to care about this stuff. Like, lots of people care about this.
They seem to be, and I've noticed this, they seem to be willing to make compromises in the name of unity that I find just absolutely morally abhorrent on every level. And this is,
but they don't have to throw human rights in the garbage to do that.
No, but this is what I'm saying. It's one of those compromises. That is a morally abhorrent compromise.
No, that's not a compromise. Sorry, no, that's not a compromise. That's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's unacceptable.
What do you mean, not a compromise?
They're throwing it away by putting Saudi.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying.
By putting a systemic human rights violator as chair of the Human Rights Commission, that's abhorrent. That's unacceptable.
It is.
Absolutely. That is a non-negotiable point of concession.
It should be non-negotiable.
Not acceptable, in my view.
But this is, I'm actually agreeing with you. What I'm saying is that in the name of, I've seen this happen with this sort of more liberal mindset, where you start with the attitude of wanting to include people and bring people in and take people from where they are and move them towards a better position, whatever. But this is where I actually do see slippery slopes, where people are willing to make greater and greater compromises until they do something so absolutely insane and obviously also morally abhorrent as putting Saudi Arabia at the head of a human rights tribunal, which is like, it's like putting putting Jeffrey Dahmer in charge of.
I will disagree with you on one
school
point.
Lunches.
I got to disagree with you calling that liberalism. It is not liberalism. It is stupidity.
Oh, that is stupidity. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm saying that's like it has in some instances started in liberalism and then spiraled off into total insanity. Or started with a liberal idea and then again spiraled off into total insanity. Yeah. Not that. And again, this is where I want to draw the line between something that someone in a group does and something that someone in a group does because of the ideology of the group.
So now I noticed in the chat, theoretically made a point that the USA somehow compares like that. I think their comment was, but yeah, Randolph, then the USA can also leave it. So I just glanced at the chat and noticed that. The USA is signed on onto the Human Rights Declaration, so they're actually supporting it.
Yes.
As much as they have problems right now, these are short-term transient problems because of the way the democracy works in the U.S. The U.S.'s biggest problem, I think, is that they're politically polarized over two major parties that have huge fundamental disagreements. Right off the bat, you have abortion and things like that, so religion gets intertwined to that. And so what the U.S. really needs is a minimum of 3 parties. They need an odd number of parties, 3 or more, and the more the better. If they had 5 parties, I think things would be a lot more progressive there. Things would work a lot better, because here what we see in Canada, when we have minority governments, we'll see that these governments will actually make more progress and get more things done, because the different parties have to negotiate and figure out how to get along with each other, and that drives them to consider more what their constituents want. And one of the biggest problems with party politics,
to look at
one of the biggest problems with party
where they
politics
can come together.
It divides the loyalties of the politicians between the party and the constituents.
And those who, and I think it should be a part of education early on
Yep.
to instill in children coming up the value that loyalty is to the people first, because that's the entire point of a representative government, is to be loyal to the people so they get what they need.
Yep.
That's your job. By
Yep.
definition, that's your job.
Yep.
So I feel that that's something in our education system that we could stand to emphasize more. Not necessarily something that is wholly neglected, but we really, I think it's right to focus on that. And
Yeah.
the religion aspect of it is problematic. I mean, there's been a huge movement of evangelicalism coming out and talking about Christian evangelical attitudes. And, I mentioned Alberta being a bit like Texas at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I started school as an evangelical child in Alberta. I went to a Christian private school that, had I continued there and my parents not moved, would absolutely have taught me creationism, and did begin to. I was actually taught creationism regardless. And I went to, by the time I went to a normal public school, I was inured against understanding evolution, which is of course how they keep you from believing it. And so these things do exist here. And a lot of it, unfortunately, because America is so much larger and their Bible Belt is so much larger, their Christian culture is something that Canadian evangelicals simply import.
It's not only Canadians. So young Earth creationism is on the rise, whereas Christianity is on the decline. And
it's polarizing. People are going more extreme, or they're getting the hell out of Dodge.
And I think one of the reasons for that is the extremists.
We also have that in Holland. We have it in Germany. Germany actually has a creation museum, believe it or not. Which is kind of funny, and I still hope that I can visit one day, because it's entirely made out of Legos and.
Okay, see, that might be funny. At least you could laugh at it. Yeah, God is a Lego master.
the guy who runs that made it in a spare room in his house, and I'm not sure. So there used to be videos on YouTube.
Serious, or is it a joke?
No. He is a real young Earth creationist, but that was what he had to build his creation museum. So the Ark is built out of Legos, and the Tower of Babel was built out of Legos, and he had I don't know if you have those in US and Canada, Playmobil, which are the tiny puppets. So he had a lot of those, and created scenes.
Come to think of it, God's creation story in Genesis, and both of them, all Genesis entirely, God does kind of act like a 5-year-old with Legos.
And there is
smashing them. I don't like it.
I need to go find it again. So there is a guy who has created all the major scenes from the Old Testament in Lego.
Wow.
And
does that include the one that was an atheist, and it included the scene from Judges where they dismember the concubine into 12 pieces and send her to all the tribes of Israel?
He was kicked from a Lego. He was kicked from a Lego convention because his exhibitions were a little bit too violent, even though it's all in the Bible. So, and apparently that's good
with all the bloodshed. With all the bloodshed, he must have used a lot of red bricks.
So he is on the internet. I think it is the Bible in Legos, something like that. So there's a website on the internet that has all the pictures where he recreates all these scenes, and even the more sexual ones are depicted in Legos, which he didn't display at the Lego convention, but he had
No. Although I wonder if he got the time where someone was sleeping with his foreign wife in his tent, which they called in the sight of all Israel, and a religious zealot went in and stabbed them both with a spear through as they were joined together and left them to die, and God commended the man's zeal for his righteousness.
I don't know. So it is an ongoing project. So I have to go find it.
That only counts to fellow Jews that God doesn't want you to kill.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Did that Lego thing cost as much as Ken Ham's Ark? I'm just curious.
No, not nearly. Not nearly. As I said, he did it in one of his spare rooms, and I don't know if it still exists. Funded? I don't know if it still exists, but he was a young Earth creationist, and he was a big fan of Kent Hovind, and I think his creation museum even predates the one that Ken Ham has. So
wow.
But okay. Everything was pulled from YouTube. I had saved the videos because they were hilarious, and what I didn't do is download them.
Didn't download.
Yeah. So.
You gotta mirror these things.
Missed opportunity. But
BitChute is your friend on this.
Yeah. So, but when you look at it, and you were talking about Saudi Arabia, but isn't it apparent for all religions? So Islam is kind of a young religion, so they're still trying to figure out
not that young.
What the Christian.
Hang on, Peter. Let me read you something from the Quran. It says from Al-Nisa, chapter 4, 89. They wish that you should disbelieve as they have disbelieved, so that you may become all alike. Take not, therefore, friends from among them, until they emigrate in the way of Allah. And if they turn away, then seize them and kill them wherever you find them, and take no friend nor helper from among them. That's pretty horrible stuff too. You know, it's very much like the Christians, but I have heard people argue that it is more forgiving because they do give you a last moment chance to convert, whereas Christianity says just kill them right off.
Well, what I was referring to,
living my entire life enslaved to blackmail is not kind.
No, but what I was referring to, Christianity did all of those things already. In the Middle Ages, you had the Spanish Inquisition, which had some really nice torture devices to convert people to Christianity as well. So I don't
think they were nice.
Yeah, it's not something that is that we can just put to the Muslims.
But this leads to a kind of implication that I find absolutely abhorrent, that because Christianity had to get that out of its system, we shouldn't be too hard on Islam. And
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's history repeating itself, because Christianity had to learn the hard way, and I think we should be as harsh with the Muslims, and I think probably even harsher, because times have changed.
Be harsh with Islam. But yeah. You know, if you want a more recent example, an even younger religion, how about the Book of Mormon? 2 Nephi, chapter 26, verse 19. Those who have dwindled in unbelief shall be smitten by the hand of the Gentiles. You know, it's just...
And yet they don't actually execute you for leaving Mormonism in Utah. Your friends get bitchy, which is not cool, but it's not,
Well, that's because the U.S. isn't actually, in Utah, they're not actually executing anyone, are they?
No, I'm now curious, because you use the word Gentiles.
Not as bad as the Jehovah's Witnesses, but still quite bad.
That they're going to be smitten by the Gentiles. Does that mean they're going to be gently smitten, or?
No, Gentiles. Gentile.
Just making...
different meaning.
The evil outsiders, the evil bad outsider, bad people.
Yeah, so it's funny how words have meanings, right, Randolph? Because we're earlier on, and you said you weren't going to mention it on stream, so I'll do it for you. We were talking about a certain kind of cleavage.
Oh God,
And
yeah, it's okay. The comments from American
cultural
Republicans right
cleavage.
now are
Cultural
oh.
cleavage,
I love how you mentioned
is
that, and she goes straight to Republicans.
well, maybe that
That
is
was the origin of the comment from
Yeah.
what's
Yeah, it is.
Sandy Face Beyond the alternative facts bimbo.
Kellyanne Conway.
And I just pointed out that I have much better cleavage.
Yes, and do I have to add that you have a much more pleasant face as well? Because every time I see Kellyanne Conway in a close-up, I want to get a cross and a silver bullet. So
Yeah, I see a genuine smile on Lilith's face right now.
yeah, but it's,
In fairness, I can't take that as a compliment because that's not a very high standard.
no,
here. But
it
noticing
isn't.
the difference between Kellyanne Conway and Ann Coulter, I think the difference is that Satan sucked Kellyanne's soul out her face and Ann's out from behind.
Yeah,
boy.
What's up with Coulter's hands? I mean, have you seen those in close-up?
I don't want to. I don't want to see that.
It's why is it that people that are horrible on the inside somehow do express that on the outside as well? Because it's just
Because beauty is only skin deep, but ugly goes right to the bone.
yeah, and sometimes it does come out through the skin. I'm just saying. I mean,
I guess hate is bad for your complexion, which is why I'm so beautiful.
see,
Cheers.
and that's where everyone can learn from this. So, I do think that people who are deeply hateful, you can actually see it. So, do I need to mention Kenneth Copeland? I mean, if I were to design someone a character for a TV show that is possessed by demons, it'll come out like Kenneth Copeland.
Is he wearing a wig or is he painting his hair or is that just some convoluted over what the hell is he's like Gollum before he went totally quite all the way crooked.
And I don't know if you've seen the video where he blows the COVID away, which didn't
oh yeah
work.
Well, I heard about that. I didn't see it, so.
I'm curious if that has led to where he was fired because he's no longer on the biggest Christian channel in the U.S. His show got canceled. So.
Well, he did make a mockery of himself, but before COVID, he was stopped by a reporter who had the temerity to ask him
about the planes.
Why he had a $3 million jet and why he wouldn't fly normal planes.
Not one, he has several.
Yeah.
I have a picture.
He has all the jets.
I have a two-part picture of Kenneth Copeland here. Are you able to share it?
No, that's something we still because of the way that the show is set up with StreamYard. That's something that
Hold it up, or just send it through to Peter in the side chat. I really want to see this now.
Yeah, I'll have to. Let me see what I can do.
Is it the back because he's one of the old holdover televangelists. He's been around for a while, and yeah, he's
I'm gonna put it here, and then Peter can hopefully download it and share it. Let me see here. I'll just send it to Peter privately in Twitter.
Whoops.
Sounds good. I have to say, Kenneth Copeland and Jim Baker and a few of those kinds, they have to be the greatest evidence that there is no God that actually cares about humanity at any rate. Because, and let me be clear, if those assholes were speaking for me, I would smite them dead. God has not smacked the crap out of disgusting, money-grubbing cretins like that. he's not listening.
Oh, he's probably looking for it on Twitter. But I'm listening. And I think the audience.
Well, I meant God isn't listening because ew.
Oh.
But yeah, it's like, would you be represented by that? Would you be represented by Kenneth Copeland if you had all power to choose anyone on earth to represent you and your ideas? Where would Kenneth Copeland be on that list?
Well, his audience seems to think quite highly of him. They've been sending him money to buy private jets and whatnot.
Yeah. See, I would put him somewhere between a slug and a tapeworm.
Yeah. So I see them as charlatans running very successful businesses. And
That's true.
Yeah. They're popular. They're on TV. They've figured out how to appeal to the audience. There are many more like them, probably, who've tried and didn't make it. So they're the few that bubble to the top somehow. Usually something charismatic about their personality or presentation. Very often, it's charismatic to the audience, of course. It appeals to certain people. So
well, and they, if they step into the current of what I shall generously term Christian culture, you can take advantage of trends in that as you can in anything else. It does make me wonder, did you ever watch the show Marjo, the documentary?
I don't recognize that name. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Oh, this is actually won an Academy Award in like the 70s or something, I think. Okay. Marjo was this unfortunate young man who, at the age of, 4, he had been taught to parrot basically sermons. And his parents said, oh, it's the Holy Spirit speaking. We didn't teach him anything. Of course, that was entirely false. His mother not only taught him, but had a series of signals for hurry up, slow down, wrap it up in terms of praise the Lord. And she would also beat and abuse him, but in being careful not to leave any marks, you know. So when he got older, having no other skills, as a young man, he was basically doing this because he had no other way to make a living. And he did a documentary and showed how all the tricks are pulled. Yes. And showed the background and spoke openly about how knowingly fraudulent they were.
I think I have that. So if you want,
it's remarkable. It's old enough that you can find it online without violating any copyright.
Yeah,
I believe.
50 years? Oh yeah, I guess so, because we're 2020 now. It's 50 years after the author's death here in Canada, though.
Oh, after the author's death. Okay, yeah, no, but it was produced in the United States. Does that affect?
I think they're very much the same. Or almost the same. Yeah, their rules.
I wasn't sure what the copyrights were like, because film versus writing versus they
doesn't matter. Here in Canada, it's 50 years after the author's death. But if a corporation owns the copyright, then that changes things, because it'd usually be after the and they can transfer the
because they can't really. The corporation can't die in a timely manner.
The corporation be shut down.
Not in a predictable manner. You can't be like, well, you're not going to live past 300 or something.
So that's a gray area. I'm not quite sure how all that works. It's a bit of a gray area. I'd have to research it again.
Fair enough. I'll look into it. If it's on internetarchive.org, then that's probably a safe place to find it.
Very careful.
Okay,
yeah,
but
so I would.
Randolph,
anyway, go ahead.
I got your pictures. So can you explain a little?
Just for fun, this is Kenneth Copeland. I just for fun, you can show the next picture. I put
back when he was
the Gremlins. The movie The Gremlins. This is what happens when you feed them after midnight.
Who fed him after midnight?
Yeah.
Next thing, they're going to get baptismal water on him, and then all hell is going to break loose, and we're going to have a gremlin apocalypse.
Yeah. So what?
I had some fun in Photoshop with that one. I was just goofing around.
Would holy water do even more than just normal water? So we might need to test that.
If it's Catholic holy water, I know that it tests very high for
COVID-19.
fecal bacteria, since Catholics apparently are not great at washing
because
their
they're sharing,
hands
not
before.
cleaning.
It's
I think that
that actually is a thing in Lourdes, where more people get diseases from the water than that are cured.
That are cured by them.
Because I think the total number,
some of this holy water.
Yeah, the total number of healed people, I think, is somewhere in the 60s, something, over several decades, which probably they have less than they would have it if it would be just pure chance of people getting healed.
So what you're saying is that because more people have gotten sick at Lourdes than have gotten healed at Lourdes, so Lourdes is actually in debt, miraculously speaking.
Yeah, when it comes to miracles, they have negative miracles.
Oh God, I hope Beach is right. Beach Price just said, I hope Lourdes isn't still a thing during the pandemic. And I have to say, Britain has been fairly reasonable about shutting down things like this. I'm pretty sure they must have shut down Lourdes. I will check that to be sure I'm quite right. But they also didn't do, one of the things that made Kenneth Copeland such an epic fail was that he tried to do the same ceremony that he would do with a packed audience and all the energy of it to blow away COVID. Instead, he just had him and his deacons appropriately spaced apart in an empty auditorium. Now, the vicars of the Church of England in England have taken a somewhat more, frankly, intelligent view. One particular vicar has become a bit of a viral sensation because he has started presenting talks in his yard with tea, because it's the most British thing imaginable. And a very nice man, seemingly, and a little cat decided to jump up and partake of his milk for the tea, and on camera, and start just dipping and consuming the little milk. It was so adorable. So his sermons have got more traction for the cat, I think, than for the content.
Than for anything else, which...
Well, cats always do well on the internet, so I'm sure it'll go viral.
Yeah.
They're adorable. They're adorable. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and in the meantime, our good friend Greg Locke had his whole thing vandalized recently.
Oh no, I is to sad.
Yeah, he's got a tent outside where he's doing his sermons. And
I don't know who you're talking about. Sorry, I don't.
You do not know Greg Locke? You are such a lucky man.
Oh, Greg Locke. I thought you said Drag Locke. Oh, no. Greg Locke. Oh.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was thinking, I know you know who Greg Locke is.
Now I want to see you do a Photoshop of Drag Locke. Just saying. Just saying.
Send me something in Twitter so I don't forget.
Yeah. I now need a picture of Drag Locke with cultural cleavage. I think
you may not have mine. Mine is a strictly conservative-free zone.
Okay.
Evangelicals do not have access to this cleavage. This is godless cleavage.
Duly
Consent
noted.
is required.
Duly noted. Although, I might be. Oh wait. I need to do this a little bit.
I did actually want to mention something to you, Randolph. You mentioned earlier when we were talking before the show how you wanted to talk about how there's been, a campaign of propaganda against atheists and anti-theists specifically.
Yeah.
With the term anti-theist, I would like to know, do you identify as one? And if so, or if not, how do you understand that term?
So I understand the term.
Randolph, before you answer, I think you might want to have a look at this.
Interesting.
That was
So it is funny
thank
that
you,
I
Jen.
can now screen share. It's not that everyone's going to be happy with this feature, but okay.
Let Randolph answer.
Yes, go ahead, Randolph.
So, my understanding of anti-theism, I would say, is probably pretty much like Aldous Huxley's, who's famous for adding the term agnosticism to the narrative at an academic level, and he was successful at that. So, the word anti indicating opposition and kind of in a distinct way, and then theism meaning belief in deities. So anti-theism, I see it primarily as meaning one who takes a position of belief that there are no deities. There are many people who are also anti-religious who identify as anti-theist. So it is a polysemous term that has a number of different usages. But increasingly, as of late, I've been, I guess, within the last 6 months or so, I'm starting to see people differentiating from anti-theism and being more specific and calling themselves anti-religious. That term seems to be growing. So there is.
I haven't observed that. That's interesting.
Yeah, not a lot, but I have noticed some. But I think
I'll keep an eye out.
As education continues to increase, we get more literacy in society, and people are starting to think more about our linguistic structure, how our words are put together, and because when we get people using the same words in many different ways, it can get quite confusing. So that's where people naturally start to gravitate toward looking at how the words are structured and tending to go with that for the meanings. So myself, I don't hold a belief for or against the existence of deities. And that's why I'm just an atheist who doesn't believe. There are many people who do hold the position that they believe there are no gods or goddesses. And they are, as a consequence of that, also not believing in deities. So they're included in the atheism category. So I hope that answers your first part of your question there. Or was that the second part? Yeah.
I think you answered them both together. I admit that I have understood the term anti-theist to be one who is opposed to belief in gods, because
like me.
There are people who do not believe, who nonetheless, as Christopher Hitchens so eloquently put it, believe in belief, that it is somehow a good thing and faith is a virtue, and all that other.
That's a separate issue. Belief in belief is a separate issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have taken anti-theist to be one who is against theism. But in fairness, by either definition, I would qualify. I believe I can make a succinct and reasonable argument that there are no gods.
Just checking.
Now, I can't, and I'll tell you why I can't. But go ahead, Peter.
Just checking with all of you. Is it you think it's safe to talk about the definition of atheism online?
I do.
Nothing is safe online.
I know there are people who get highly aggravated.
He is not allowed here.
Okay.
Don't even bring him up.
I can tell you, Peter, compared to the neighborhood I grew up in as a child, everything online is safe.
Yeah. I wouldn't
there I'd rather not remember.
I wouldn't go as far, but just every time the definition of atheism comes up, that there's going to be an issue. I have the perfect solution. Just ask the person you're talking to how they define themselves as an atheist. And
I think that's
then,
good,
you
but
mean
it's
like what I
you're done.
did?
And
that's not good enough,
No.
but it's good. It's well intended. It's very nice to do that. It's not quite good enough though, because what happens is, if, as I was saying earlier, if people use the same word in many different ways, then that introduces a lot of confusion. And one of the things that's very important to us with Canadian atheists is to be able to counter the vilification of atheists very well, so effectively. So in order to do that, we need to be clear on what we mean when we're talking about atheism. So we're clear in saying that the fundamental baseline of atheism is what we're promoting, which is not believing in deities. It is a polysemous word, which means it has it is used in different ways. And the different meanings that come about, all the different variants all share that same fundamental baseline. Now, there are some people, particularly theists, who are very dead set against atheism, who like to crop out or eclipse limit the scope of the meaning of the word atheism by taking that fundamental out of it, and then they make a category, or some of them make a category, or take it a little further, and they misplace it under agnosticism, which is a different set of principle altogether, because it's dealing with knowledge rather than belief. So where Gnosticism and agnosticism are epistemological, knowledge-centric. Theism, atheism, and anti-theism are more psychological in that they're belief-centric. And so there's a parallel. They're incidental to one another. So taking the belief portion and throwing that into agnosticism and saying you don't believe, that means you're agnostic, is wrong. It doesn't compute. It just simply isn't supported by linguistic structure. It isn't logical.
No, it's definitely a category error, and I think it's often used to try and force us into a kind of a false dichotomy, or to project their errors and irrationalities onto us, because we have faith in atheism, which is
So mentioning rationality is what they want us to do. They want us to claim that we are rational. I don't have a rational reason for being an atheist. I also don't have an irrational reason. It's just who I am. It's a characteristic, because I look at agnosticism as being a classification of not having knowledge of whether deities exist. I see atheism the same way, as a classification of just not holding a belief in it. The anti-theism and theism part are actual positions. And those ones do carry an onus of justification or burden of proof, because they are, in a sense, presenting a claim, that a belief claim nonetheless. But they do, if you want people to believe you that you are correct, if you think you can argue for your position, your belief that deities do or don't exist, then you do carry a burden of proof. And so,
if you do care about the veracity of your belief, then one would hope you would take that on voluntarily, because it's rather important.
Sure.
If you care about the truth of it.
Now, what you were just saying about the false dichotomy thing that they're trying to push on it is exactly right. That's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to use, and so the rationality thing is one of the tactics they'll use in that. And they'll say, all you atheists claim to be rational, so therefore you're saying the rest of us are irrational. The false dichotomy is actually theirs. It belongs to them, because
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm absolutely saying. They are
the
doing that.
The way
but the false dichotomy, what they're doing is they're trying to say they try to limit the scope of what atheism is by eliminating the fundamental baseline, which is supported by linguistic structure and whatnot. And they're doing that to try to trick us to take on a burden of proof that we're not taking on. And so you're right. That false dichotomy is exactly right, what you said.
I think it's
a manipulation to try and make us. It's constantly trying to drag us down to their level without noticing. Absolutely. I'm just saying. I notice, and I am sometimes slightly amused that in attempting to drag us down to their level, they end up implicitly admitting that faith is a bad thing and a bad basis for reason, and a bad basis for anything. Quite frequently, it's granted, sometimes these are scripts that tend to get passed around and just kind of rotoscoped through, but it is something that I've seen quite frequently, and it's kind of, you realize you're revealing the weakness of your own position, right?
And I think that is the creationists' best argument, telling people that evolution is a religion, because that automatically shows how weak your position is. If a religion can be false, then what does that say about your position? And
That's a very good point.
I still think that we should emphasize on that when talking to creationists. If they tell us that is a religion, well, what are you trying to say here? Are you trying to say that religions can be false? Religions can be completely irrational? Or is that really the message that you want to convey while promoting your religion?
Yeah, I think that keeping the terminology simple and straightforward is very important in this too, because they try to add complexity to it, and if we accept that complexity, then that can sabotage the clarity that we have in thinking about who we are. And I reject it. I don't accept it. And sometimes the tactic they'll use in response is to say, "Oh, you're being dismissive," as if that's a bad thing. No, I'm not being dismissive. I'm just not accepting what you're saying. And it's similar
usually. It's quite hypocritical, too. They'll be equally dismissive of somebody who says they were kidnapped and probed by aliens. So, you know.
Yeah, and so this is why I kind of promote these terms in very simplistic, fundamental ways, because then everything else can be... You want to add on something that says that you're a hateful person on this. Okay, you're a mesotheist if you hate religion, whatever. Or you want to say that something else. You can add
clarity of terms. Clarity of terms is very important.
Yeah, you can add any pre-qualifiers you like. I'm not going to accept a pre-qualifier for atheism. Some people will say weak, and I consider that to be derogatory. Others will say lack-theist, which is also another derogatory term, and it's totally redundant and unnecessary. And so these kinds of things I stay away from. And then some people are saying, "Oh, innocence." Well, now what you're doing is you're implicitly accusing other people of being non-innocent or even perhaps guilty somehow. And this further divides people. So what they're really trying to do, what their intention is to find some way to divide the atheism community. And I say that this is impossible. And the reason it's impossible to divide atheists is because, just as atheists, we are already probably among one of the most diverse demographics in the world, because we only have this one characteristic that brings us together in the same classification. It's just not believing in deities. So
if there's any clue to go with this, the title of the show, Herding Cats.
I was just going to say, you are literally on the show Herding Cats.
Perfect timing, Peter. Perfect timing.
Yeah, I mean, that is why I chose that title. That is because all of us are different, and this is also why I say, if you want to know someone's position, ask them. It's what we do when we talk to theists. We do not impose someone else's beliefs on you. So please do not do that to us.
Peter, this is not imposing. This is using the language properly. So what you're actually doing is you're trying to find out if they're using the language in a standard or non-standard way, is what I'm willing to say. So now
I can see the point of that. I've noticed, though, there's been, honestly, I think, perhaps unconsciously, a very long campaign by Christianity and theism in general to maintain a certain amount of ambiguity around a lot of terms. It's one of my favorite aspects of watching, for example, Aaron Ra. Actually, Aaron Ra is the best example I can think of this, of someone who comes up with the most succinct and clear way to express the definition of a word.
Yeah.
So that you cannot wiggle it around into some sort of absurdity for your false dichotomy to manipulate someone into a ridiculous position so that you can win a point.
Yep.
That bears no resemblance to anything anyone is actually discussing. Yeah. And I've always appreciated that about him.
Well, and I take a look at people like Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Ra, Neil Sixel, atheist, other famous atheists, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens. People like these are all on board with this, seeing as atheism is just not believing in deities. And they've said it publicly numerous times. So when people come along and say, "Oh, nobody's using that term," I know it's nonsense. And I noticed in the chat somebody brought up the term igtheism, which is a different thing altogether. My understanding of it is the idea that every theological position assumes too much about the concept.
Just look at the name who brought it up. I think.
Yeah, it's Artemis. This is you gotta shoot a little lower with your linguistic attitudes. It's just God is icky. Which, in fairness, most theology is incredibly icky.
No, I've heard some people.
Wait. Did you see what I typed in the side chat? Just saying. I beat you to it.
Theist. So there'd be a pre-qualifier that I don't get on board with the pre-qualifiers. But I'll say a little more about the term atheist. I've noticed some people will, in a video from about a year or two ago, there were philosophers and other people talking, and one guy chimed in and said, "Oh, I'm not an atheist or a theist. I'm an atheist." And his voice sounded a bit like that. I'm trying to imitate it. And I thought, well, this is not how this works. You're not understanding what this is, like what's left. One of the arguments they'll come up with as well is they'll say, "Oh, well, if you tell me you don't believe in deities, you're really not telling me anything. I can't understand you and have a conversation with you." My reaction to that is, that's your problem. Ask more questions. If somebody says they believe in a God, it's the same thing. What are you going to do? You're going to stomp your feet and run out with that attitude as well? It's ridiculous. No, you ask more questions. Well, which deities? Or which deity? And then the conversation gets more...
Why do you hold this opinion is a very good question that I find far too often. Not only will believers frequently not ask, they won't even listen to the answer if you offer it. There is, not in everyone, I have met, I would say, honest theists who are interested in understanding why someone would hold a diverse view. But there are far too many who are quite eager to parrot whatever line their pastor or apologist has told them about why the unbelievers are blank and think thus, which has nothing to do with any reality whatsoever. Frankly, with regard to the ick theist as opposed to the ig theist, I have to say icky theist, either one. It's, we can talk about this at a very high intellectual level, and I appreciate that very much, but there is something deeply and viscerally disturbing to me that it is so unusual for me to openly object to human sacrifice and blood magic as an ideological basis for one's life.
Yeah, I agree. And I can see some people putting the icky theist moniker onto Catholic priests who've been abusing children, because that's another big problem.
Ah, yes. No child's behind left.
Oh, quoting Christopher Hitchens. Yeah, he was such a delight. Yeah, I recognize that.
It's, as it would be phrased in Latin form. I can't help it. I adore Hitchens.
Other horrible things too. They make jokes about this stuff. It's not funny. This stuff is serious.
To be honest, Randolph, you may or may not know this. There is a person that I used to call the female Christopher Hitchens.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was an account that I found on Twitter. I was one of the first who found that account, which has since been suspended because obviously she is the female Christopher Hitchens, and thus has to be silenced by the theist community. I
came back.
There's the female Christopher Hitchens.
Well, they just didn't like me pointing to Jack Van Impe, the same thing that Christopher Hitchens said upon the death of the late repulsive Jerry Falwell. Now that he's dead, I have some advice for his grieving family. Give him an enema, you can bury him in a fucking matchbox.
Ooh. See?
Yep.
I didn't overdo
Which,
it.
if you are familiar with Jack Van Impe, you are aware that is a completely accurate assessment of the situation.
Yeah. Should we now assess the new Jerry Falwell, who's also in kind of hot water at the moment?
No. He's just a bad ripoff of his father.
Well, so I do like it when people like that, when then the story pops up that he has a young guy who comes in, has sex with his wife while he sits in the corner and watches. I mean, why is it always those people who are so against everything that has anything to do with sex that then come up with things like this? I don't get
always the case.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
The whole encouragement of abstinence among clergy is probably a big part of the problem too.
Well, the whole
Yeah.
of purity
It's not
culture,
natural for people. Yeah.
the idea that sex is the most dirty and vile thing and you should save it for the one you love, and also that you should only have it with the one person because that's obviously the way to get good at something. The purity culture is deeply destructive on many levels, and it's
Yeah.
really incredibly creepy that a culture that they want to control your sexuality.
And when Christopher Hitchens is talking that it pushes, it attacks the core of who we are, he's actually
Yes.
referring to self-confidence, and the people who find it abhorrent have self-respect. People have a sense of self-respect, and this is why people are against this. Even look in the U.S. Look at all the protests against systemic racism going on with Black Lives Matter and whatnot. What I see there are a lot of people who are saying, "Hey, I'm not going to sacrifice my sense of self-respect for this. This is wrong. I'm standing against it." And very reasonably, they're expecting to be treated respectfully in society, and they feel they're not being treated respectfully. And this whole purity culture you're talking about is another example of how people are being taught to or being discouraged from living as themselves honestly with who they are, and instead trying to be someone else, which I think is very shallow.
It's very degrading, I find, because I have to interject something here, because there is a quotation I was reminded of as you were speaking with regard to purity culture. It wasn't applied to this initially, but it very much fits, and it's not from Christopher Hitchens. It is from Aaron Ra. You remember, of course, that in Christianity, pride is a terrible sin, etc., etc. But Aaron Ra pointed out, don't knock pride, because pride is a foundational concept with two other dependent concepts of honor and shame. If you have no pride, you have no honor, and you have no shame.
It's so well said. I really like that.
It is. And he went on to talk about Charles Manson and how he would fundamentally destroy his followers' pride by raping them, including the men, in front of the family, to break them down. And while most of Christianity does not involve such obvious, open, violent violation, the violation of pride, of individual dignity and agency from throughout the entirety of faith, is something I can personally attest to in my own life, but also in all of the theology, all of the VBS, all of everything, all the way through. It's all about how it's not about you. You are corrupt and all your righteousness is as filthy rags. God has a plan for you, and only his ways are right, but his ways are not our ways. There is never a moment in Christianity when there is not, even when they're uplifting you, they're also undercutting you. And infecting sexuality like that and controlling it like that is deeply corrosive to our own connection with who we are. And it's incredibly vile, and it's incredibly wrong, and it's also incredibly effective. And I find that absolutely abhorrent on a level I have difficulty describing.
There's I think I agree with you. The bite model is an interesting thing that's come into the public foray recently.
Thank you, Telltale.
BITE, it stands for. I'm just quickly try to read what the acronym says here.
It stands for belief control, information control, thought control, and emotion control.
Yeah, and I use this actually to make sure that Canadian Atheist never goes off course, because we're definitely not that, and we don't come anywhere close to it. But I think it's a very insightful model. It's very good for identifying cult-like behaviors and things that are psychologically unhealthy for people, and I think everybody should be aware of it, because It can help people steer clear of organizations and people who are problematic for them.
It's true. And I appreciate that the bite model is not specifically angled only towards religious cults.
Oh yeah, yeah. Multi-level
because
marketing.
many of the others are, and granted, cults are very often religious, but not always.
Oh yeah.
And unhealthy manipulation can appear in other areas. And I think by opening it up outside of just around God belief, you can be far more cognizant and aware. Scientology, for example, doesn't have a God belief.
Yes, it does.
It's still a fucked up, crazy cult. Well, no, they have Xenu, but he's an intergalactic overlord, and they have spiritual beliefs because of the Thetans and it's very weird.
Well, it depends which Scientologist you're talking to then. So
fair enough.
Multi-level marketing pyramid schemes are an example of cult-like organizations that don't have religion intertwined. I've been invited to a few over the years. I just don't have any interest in getting into any of them, and
nope.
But it's funny, people still get suckered into it. And then there's other people who are just control freaks who just like to control their friends or control the people they know. And you can even see some of these bite model behaviors being exhibited in the workplace sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate too, because it's a very effective way to manipulate people. And it disturbs me. The problem is that people who are willing to be unethical can use that, and unfortunately they can get in first before reason and integrity and education have a chance to really bring the truth to light. And that disturbs me greatly, because I think we need to find a more direct and immediate way to cut that off at the pass.
Education, public education. We need more critical thinking in the schools. Philosophy.
We need to make creationism illegal to teach.
Logic and philosophy, I think, should be taught starting from kindergarten. And it doesn't have to be like a full-fledged course like mathematics or any of the other courses, but if they're doing maybe half an hour a week on this subject, that would be a tremendous benefit for society over time.
That really would.
Yeah.
Even just the critical thinking skills, a bit of Socratic. Now, why do we think that?
Well, philosophy ties in very well with it. That's why they should be taught together, I think. Yeah.
I would also add in comparative religion as something.
When they're a bit older, but yes, teaching about the fact that there are different religions and these are what they
the problem,
and not only what they teach, but also how they treat the people who fall away from the religion, especially when you look at Scientology. I forgot the Mormonism, but the ones that come to your door here in Holland. Jehovah's Witnesses.
They are the only ones, I think, that are more horrific in their shunning than the Mormons.
Yes.
The Mormons are bad, but they're not as bad as the Jehovah's Witnesses.
So the problem with pretty much every comparative religion course that I've seen is that it covers a fraction of the different religions in the world, and they usually will focus very heavily on just one and try to make it look really good. So they tend to be biased. I haven't really seen any that are actually any good. And they're like, for example, I know of over 50 religions that are distinctly separate religions. The number goes up into the mid-70s if you include the major offshoots of Christianity. There's a lot out there. And they're not covering that. They're covering maybe 2 or 3 at the most, if you're lucky.
Well, and it's honestly, it's a bit of work to get them out of just the Abrahamic faiths. I mean, cover the fact that there are Shia and Sunni Muslims, never mind the Wahhabis or what is the more mystical, reasonable sect.
There are about 100 denominations of Islam that I'm aware of. You've just mentioned.
And there's I know. I'm saying you can only cover so much in high school. Even just, I mean, Protestant Christianity alone is 30,000 denominations, but they don't cover
Yeah.
Buddhism, and that does not include, of course, all Catholic schisms, Orthodox schisms, Coptic Christianity, or any of the sects that were killed off around the Nicene councils. So that's, but then
Well, I've done a bit of
Judaism
research
also,
in this area. There's all kinds of things. There's the ancient Egyptian religion. There's Asatru, known as heathenry. That's the one with Thor and Odin. There's the
what about ones that are, what if we just narrowed it to
religion.
ones that are actually in practice today? Because
Okay, well,
there
are people practicing Asatru. I know people who practice.
Really?
Yes,
Yes.
there are people. Some of them are
We're
on
not cutting
Twitter.
out hearts still.
Yeah, and there's people who are delving into Aztec. Some of the stuff's coming back. There's the Baha'i faith. There's the Bon religion, which is popular in Vietnam. Buddhism is
Jainism is an offshoot of Hinduism, so is Buddhism.
No. Buddhism has a Vedic background, but it is the Chinese Buddhism is the big popular one in the world today, and there are two types. There are two schools of thought on it. One is as a religion, because they do actually it multiple deities. It is a polytheist religion, but there are other people who say it's atheistic. What's actually happening?
I think some versions of it can be.
Okay, well, you've got the deities. They're central in it. They're part of the scriptures. You can't get away from that. So the people who I know who are Buddhists here who don't follow the religion are just interested in the philosophy. They call themselves philosophical Buddhists. So I think when people say those are atheistic, that's a misunderstanding, because we don't believe in deities. And some of those people, many of those people who are just into philosophy still believe in the deities, and they'll go to the temple and they'll pray. You go to any Buddhist temple, you'll find right off the bat, the big happy Buddha greets you right at the door. It's a big fat, happy, jolly Buddha. And then there's the Guanyin is a goddess. And those are probably the two best well-known deities in all of Buddhism. They've also they've usually
the argument of is Buddha a deity. I mean, I understand he is.
It is according to all the
in a similar way, but it's
but it is according to all the Buddhists that I've spoken to about it, even the philosophical ones. So there's there's another Vietnamese one, Dao Cao Dai. It goes on. There's a Falun Gong, Falun Dafa religion, which is an offshoot extremist version of Buddhism, and some of them are into space aliens and stuff. A lot of them, the extreme ones, believe there's kind of two major separations in China of this Falun Dafa or Falun Gong. One of them is they're mainly just kind of gathering around wanting to practice Tai Chi, and they're not talking about politics or overthrowing government or anything. Those ones are fine. It's the other group that's more extreme. They are wanting to overthrow the government, so they get arrested for that, because that's a big problem in China. If you're going to talk about
they don't take that well.
Yeah, well, a lot of governments, like even here in Canada, it's illegal to make a plan, to execute a plan to overthrow the government here. A lot of people don't know that, but that is in Canada.
To execute a plan or to make a plan?
To execute a plan to overthrow the government, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's, I mean...
But if you're executing a plan, you can get charged for this. But I don't know if anybody's ever been charged for that.
That seems like kind of a default law that any government would have. No, you can't overthrow the government.
And now in China, they have a big problem with groups that are trying to overthrow the government there, because and I think you'll see this more commonly in larger in nations with larger populations.
Fair enough.
But the Falun Gong, the more extreme side of it, what they want to do is there's been cases in China where like one case in particular was in the news a few years ago. There was this Falun Gong practitioner took his relative and tortured them to death because they did it in the name of Falun Gong, because their belief is that the more you suffer in this lifetime, the better in the hierarchy you'll be in the afterlife, because they believe the afterlife has this complex hierarchy and stuff like that. It's quite a mess.
Yeah, I've heard some breakdowns of
now
Eastern.
What was reported here in Western culture, They left out all the part about the torture, and they just said this guy's being pushed on. So, propaganda goes in both directions. But the thing is, I think the government is correct to intervene in those kinds of scenarios so you can protect the citizens, right? So, you got the
and we don't have to go that far, because didn't we have that in Catholicism as well, with Mother Teresa, who got tons of money to help the poor and the sick, and then refused them any form of medication.
And it all just went to the Catholic Church's coffers.
Yeah, but
because
she
they
had,
don't have enough.
But she had a reason.
Nobody knows how much money she actually got for them.
Yeah, but she had a reason, because the more they would suffer, the closer they would be to Christ. So it's literally exactly the same thing. She made people suffer. She cut them off from their families. She refused them any sort of medical help, just lumped them in and let them suffer, because that would bring them closer to Christ.
Your suffering is the kisses of God.
She was
Your suffering is
horrible.
I was told by Christian, like Protestant Christians who admired Mother Teresa, that when she was with the suffering lepers, she would say, your pain is your suffering are the kisses of Jesus. And that, there's this story we all laughed at of a man who grabbed her and said, "Tell Jesus to stop kissing me." Which, it's a nice way to turn that particular absurd platitude on its head. But at the same time, this is the kind of absurdity you get into when you do charity based on religious ideas, because everything is upside down and you always have to prioritize something over human well-being.
Yeah.
Some idea, whatever it is, that has to be more important than the well-being of yourself and the person you're trying to help.
One of the things that I like to promote is that people are more important than ideas. I believe that very firmly.
Yes.
And and then one of the responses that comes up very often where I've raised this is, except religion isn't an idea, it's a way of life. It's a collection of ideas.
Bullshit.
Yeah. There's always some kind of...
It's not an idea. So you don't
and
have
isn't
to
that
believe
also
Jesus to be a Christian?
Isn't that also where we get our morality from? And that is why ours is superior to any religious form of morality, because we put the people at the top, not any ideas or doctrine or whatever.
Yeah, it's because people is what we know is the most superior in this planet right now. So intellectually, so of course we're going to put ourselves.
I'm starting to doubt that, living next to the United States.
Just wait until we meet the Marklar on planet Marklar, and they're much more intelligent than us. Then we won't be first place anymore. But they're nice. They'll be nice. You know what I'm referring to.
I may need to be filled in, because I think I missed something.
Oh, there's a South Park episode where the kids go to another planet with some aliens who live on planet Marklar, and they're called the Marklar, and they call every person, place, and things Marklar. So communicating
Their
with
entire
them,
language is just Marklar.
Yep, but communicating with them is a bit of a challenge, but the kids figure it out, and they end up explaining to them why they shouldn't accept Jesus. It was a good episode.
Kind of a religion based on the linguistic things that the Smurfs already had, because they called everything a Smurf.
Oh, kinda. I guess it is a bit of a play on that.
Actually,
that's a great connection. I never thought of that.
I'm now revealing my age. I'm that old. I grew up when the Smurfs was a big thing. So.
Me too. Yeah. You probably remember the Cabbage Patch dolls and people physically fighting over them in the stores.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I kind of wonder if some evangelicals thought they might be of Satan because that gave them an excuse not to have to buy them for their children.
I have seen that. And so what was the other thing? The Furbies? The Furbies were of Satan as well.
Furbies were much later than the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yeah, but so they were also from the devil, because when the battery went empty, you got these demonic voices that would come out of the.
Oops.
It's yeah. And to be
Honestly,
fair,
anything
it
that
is
looks
really scary.
like that is just generally considered Satan.
It to be fair, it is really scary. And on a personal note, I can say that. So I own two old American cars. On when you go to a car show here in Holland, people will have dolls that they will put up to their car. I had one as well. Mine was it was based on a real person who lived across the street from me, a 5-year-old boy, and that's where I got the clothes from. Then made a doll. The mother actually helped me. He had some tools in his back pocket. He had and I would put him up to my car. And when I didn't have a car show, I would put the doll in the corner of my room. When I then got a new girlfriend who in the middle of the night needed to go to the bathroom and so had to walk across the room, she was scared to any level. I mean, she literally screamed. So I thought that we were being burgled, but she hadn't noticed the doll in daylight because we were sitting in another part of the room. And when she walked past it, it looked like kind of Chucky standing in the corner. And so
oh, that's not nice. That is not nice, sir.
Terrified, and being who
I
am,
blame her.
Being who I am.
That stuff will startle anybody, but terrifying people, it can be a real mind-numbing experience for people. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, my stomach hurt from laughing that night. I'm that evil. So sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah, you left Chucky in the corner. I'm surprised you're still alive.
Yeah.
Is she still your girlfriend?
Nope.
No surprise there.
Nope.
This is my shock face.
No. Well, to be fair, we did split up for different reasons. Not because of the doll, because over time she did get used to the doll. Yeah. So.
Oh boy, you're cruel.
Shit happens, I think.
There's a reason I'm not dating Peter besides the other side of the world thing.
Oh well,
okay.
and now
I
I live
to existing girlfriend.
And now I live in a forest, so there's so many practical jokes you can do. You can have something fall out of the trees.
I hope your girlfriends team up against you.
They do. It's
Good.
It's an ongoing
They
thing.
should.
So we should make a YouTube channel, just the pranks that we pull on.
Have you ever done a Friday the 13th theme? I'm just curious since you're out in a forest.
No, not really. I do have something set up because I recently got pictures from a woman who creates animals that look entirely real, and so she has made a bat. So I'm trying to Photoshop that into a picture of our cabin, and then just say, hey, I just saw this afternoon. I have no clue what it is. It's no longer there, and see what happens if they want to go out when it's dark. Just curious. But
you should do one of the Australian drop bears.
Drop bears? What?
They're giant koala bears that have big claws and sharp teeth, and they apparently jump on people from out of trees. It's a myth, but people make fun of it. It's just hilarious stuff.
I'd have to make one and have it fall out of the tree. So I did have a truck horn
and growling for sure.
Yeah, I had a truck horn mounted under the bed, so whenever someone would lay on the bed, the truck horn would sound. That was great.
My dad, when I was a kid, we had a Honda Civic 5-speed, one of those little cars from the 70s, and it was a good little car. but the horn was terrible. It wasn't very loud. So one of his friends who's into mechanics, does it professionally, helped him hook up a horn from a big truck, a big rig horn. And then I remember sometimes people fall asleep at the wheel when the light turns green and we're right behind them. So he blasts the horn and they panic because they think there's a big truck and they don't see it.
Yeah, so I did that when I got my driver's license, and when I was standing at the lights, I would just honk my horn while it was still red and see how many people would just take off because they didn't look.
That's a horrible thing to do. But did they take off?
Yes, most will. That's the big problem. Most will actually take off. So don't do that. No. One time it was a really near miss. So
and then you stopped.
And that's when I stopped doing it. And now streets are so busy. I wouldn't advise anyone to do it. But yeah.
Yeah, I did some pranks when I was in school, but I never did anything that I thought would put anyone in danger. I was very selective about which ones I would do.
Yeah, well, see, that's why you're a lot more intelligent than I am, I think. But
that is true.
We've come up we've come up to an hour and a half, so I would really like to round it up. Randolph, is there anything? Is there anything you want to share? Can you tell people where they can find you and things that you're up to?
Okay. Well, recently I'm pursuing something. It's a slow process, but we're challenging Bill 1 in Alberta, which is called the it's the Infrastructure Act that they put in. Essential Infrastructure Act, and what it allows the government there to do that's our next province, is to put in to arrest people for just gathering in public. I think that they're afraid of oil protests and Black Lives Matter protests. So this, of course, is a violation of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So, of course, is that a picture of my letter, isn't it?
Yes, briefly.
Yeah. So, I wrote to the Lieutenant Governor General there. Didn't get a response. I've made a few queries. Nobody's called me back. So it looks like I may have to escalate it to our federal Governor General to get some action, because
I think that's a good idea.
That law actually also violates the rights of everyone being equal under the law. It violates the Lieutenant Governor General's rights in this respect too, in a way that some people find unusual, because it gives her additional powers to pass laws without going through the normal procedures. So that makes her unequal to other citizens of Canada, because she has more power, and it's an arbitrary kind of power. So she's not equal under the law, and so that has to be corrected as well. That's a violation of her rights, even though it's a privilege for her to have it.
I put it up on screen as well. I put the link in the side chat.
Thank you very much.
I'll put in the link to your website as well, and your Twitter.
So
any fellow Canadians, jump in on that, please.
So I'll be providing an update when that comes through. So that's something I'm working on along with other things. And so, if you want to know more about the Canadian Atheists, we're at www.canadianatheists.ca, and I see that Peter's got the link up there. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me on. Did your audience have anything they wanted me to answer to, or is everything looking good in that respect?
So during the show, I put up on screen the things that people had to add in, and I think we pretty much covered everything.
Okay.
As we went along, I didn't see any specific questions.
Okay. So I'm seeing low quality graphics on my end, so I can't quite make out what the words are that people are saying. But that's a StreamYard issue. It's not your issue.
No. Okay.
The internet is a bit overloaded these days.
Yeah. And so it's still a struggle trying to figure out to find it to do this the best way possible. I'm for now I'm happy with the setup that we got.
It looks good.
So
you've done well. Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. It's a delight and an honor to be here.
Well, and
I'm very glad to have you on.
tell people where they can find you on Twitter, on YouTube.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter at Randolph828. That's Randolph spelled with an F. Or you can just look up my name. You'll see Chinese characters beside my name. You'll know that's me. My picture's there too. I also have a personal website, randolphrichardson.com. But mainly I'm suggesting people try to contact me in this context through Canadian Atheists at canadianatheists.ca.
Okay, I'll put the link
page there.
I'll put all of the links in the description later. I those are the things that I always forget. So, but I will put up the links to your Twitter, YouTube account.
And we welcome members from all over the world. We have we're not just restricted to Canada, although our primary focus is here in Canada.
Yeah, and
I think it's important for us to join forces in ways that other groups have. Yeah. To make sure that our voices are heard and that our concerns are addressed.
Oh, yeah.
One voice is always just one voice until it is joined by others.
That's right.
Okay, we do have a comment from Beach Price, if you can read it.
Beach.
I said he is the nicest Canadian atheist.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
Actually, I second that. He's much nicer than me.
Me too. Me too.
You're not Canadian.
Although
I'm lost for words.
Although I might have some inside information, which we're not going to talk about.
Hey. Jeez.
Right, Randolph?
I don't know.
No. Randolph and I do have a chat every once in a while offline, which will stay offline, which is a lot of fun. I'm just saying. It's an awful lot of fun.
Because that's what a Discord is for, everyone to let their hair down.
He is one of the nicest people that I've met, but he does have a dark side. Just saying.
Of course.
Canadians
are very nice people.
Which will remain
softly and carry a large stick.
Which will remain offline, and that's one of the things that I truly enjoy.
Well, I appreciate the things that both of you are doing to promote atheism and contribute to the community. Thank you very much.
Well, as I said it,
truly a pleasure.
An awful lot of times, and this is why I do artwork for other people, we need a lot of different people to convey the message, because if you are going to need to address different people, you need different approaches. Right. This is why I started this channel by myself and then got other people involved, very different people. You got Lilith, you got Robert and Artie. All three of those are really different people when it comes to talking to certain people, and I'm extremely lucky because when we have a guest on, automatically we will have the appropriate co-host to come on with that guest. That has always worked out. There are people who do request specific co-hosts as well.
I didn't.
And Robert
seems chat with a fellow Canadian.
Robert seems to top.
He suggested you, and I said Lilith would be great. So.
Yeah. Well, Lilith, to be fair, you were the first one to say, "Hey, I want to come on with Randolph." So.
Of course.
It wasn't.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad you're really here. Picking someone. Lilith just jumped on it. We're going to have Randolph. Oh, I'm in. Okay. So.
Well, far too often, because I have a disturbing amount of the Bible memorized, what with being horrifically indoctrinated and all. So far too often, I'm brought on for when he needs someone to rapid fire the Bible at a Christian until they stop being an idiot. Which is a very effective tactic because I just keep quoting it and they keep thinking like twitching because they can't argue because it's the Bible and how do you know this? You're not supposed to know my things.
And a lot are baffled how an atheist can have better knowledge of the Bible and can come up with chapter and verse just like that.
So
Actually,
the
I
quote
don't
came up-
remember chapter and verse. I'm horrible at remembering that, so I just memorized half the contents of the Bible. It was easier.
So the quote I mentioned rang a bell for you.
Oh.
Well, so yeah. Lilith
It's nice
is
to be on a show where you don't
is my
keep quoting the
secret.
Bible, I guess.
Lilith is my secret weapon when I have a Bible basher on. I need Lilith to be there by my side because I know a fair
She's
bit.
your backup.
Yeah, but Lilith is absolutely fabulous when it comes to the Bible. So
Well, and I can always show them
yeah,
my duct tape Bible.
yeah, exactly. It's and it has duct tape for a reason, right? It's not. It's not to just make it pretty.
Nope. No, it's well, it wasn't going to hold together if I didn't. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So we're wrapping this up. Randolph, again, thanks for coming on. It was an absolute delight talking to you. And
Thanks for inviting me.
we should do it again. I know that
Okay.
there are a few projects that you guys are still working on. So whenever that materializes, we need to.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's promote everything we can
All right.
and find ways to work together and just to, amplify. We
Yes.
need to amplify our voices
appreciate
and
it.
make
Thank
sure that we do that for each other.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
And,
very much.
and another thing that I wanted to point out on the site, the Canadian Atheist site, don't
Yeah.
you have a kind of a database where people can find different atheists on social media as well?
Oh, that's not there. That's a different website.
Oh,
I know the
okay.
one you're talking about. That's the Atheist Frontier. And the section you want to go into is under resources, and it's video broadcasting.
Okay, so I
So
will.
I have over 180 YouTube channels run by atheists in there, and I've written up the descriptions for a bunch of them, and others already had ready-made descriptions, so I was able to use those with minimal or no rewriting.
Shoot me the link.
Excellent.
Shoot me the link to that one so I can.
I'll do that right now. Just give me a sec. I'll have that for you. I'll pop it in there, and you can put it up on the.
Okay,
And we
I'll
can
put
put
it.
it
I'll
in
put it.
I
in
know
the-
the page you're thinking of, so I'll put that one up in particular here.
Okay,
Here
Thank
we
I'll
go.
you.
put it. I'll put it in the description later. So
Yeah, I just put it in the
That's-
project for you.
okay, great.
We've got it. All right. Well, in that event, I think
You're in
it's
there.
probably time for us to all go and have lunch, dinner, coffee, or possibly go to bed in your case, Peter. What time is it for you?
It is. It's
Beer
coming
time.
coming up to midnight. Not too late.
It's always beer time.
Yeah, and in 24-hour vernacular, they say all balls, thanks to NASA. 0000000.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I like that NASA created that.
I want to thank everyone who was in the side chat and engaged with us, which I can now actually pop on the screen due to our new tool, which is great. We'll see. There are a few guests in the pipeline, but it is always difficult to get a day and a time. So we'll see when we get back.
Sounds
Lilith,
great.
thanks for hosting again.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Lilith.
Absolute
It was
delight.
great
Always
to
a pleasure
talk
to
to you,
speak
Ben
with you.
Randolph.
Yeah,
And
it's always a pleasure talking with you.
we'll leave you
Entirely mutual.
with a tiny commercial of one of the best books that are currently available. The Rocks Were There by Jackson Wheat and R.J. Downard. If you want to know a little bit more, go buy that book. Catch you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, Lilith.